Studio, we're pleased to welcome now Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist to SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Friday, guys.
All right, so Kelly, we were just talking about the jobs numbers coming in below expectations, and that has driven investors into sell mode. All indexes down at present rather sharply. Something else that's going on is the price of crude oil is down as a result for waning demand, and that, of course, is being driven by less economic activity. So all this is kind of fitting together. What are you guys talking about? I heard that on the news at the break. What's going on there?
Yeah, there's really a lot of economic news coming out this week. So you talked about the jobs report, job growth being weaker than economists predicted last month. 142,000 new positions created. The forecast was for around 160,000. And between you and me, Gerard, I got to wonder if they're going to revise these numbers later on down the line like they keep doing every time they release them. But here's something I dug into that I don't think you hear a lot in the mainstream media. So over the past 12 months, 1.3 million native-born Americans lost employment. 1.2 million foreign-born workers gained employment. So these jobs are going to the illegals that are coming into the country. The Federal Reserve has been looking for job growth, but not a slump. That would indicate a possible recession. Jim Leggett, the lecturer of economics at Mississippi State, says growth is really what matters most.
It's kind of like you're planting seeds and you water them and fertilize them, then leave them alone and don't mess with them. But if you're head of a major organization like presidency or the executive branch or whatever, you want to do stuff and you want to put your hands on stuff, and it doesn't work that way,
So the Fed is expected to lower interest rates by 0.25% at its meeting in September, and they're talking about further cuts to the interest rate over the next 12 months. So we'll see what happens. Of course, that'll help out borrowers. Some more economic news. A key barometer of U.S. factories came out this week. It was negative for the fifth straight month, signaling the manufacturing side of the economy is still in a slump. John McKay, the president of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association, says the Institute for Supply Management's manufacturing index was weaker than expected.
You look at specific sectors, several come to mind with the impact of higher interest rates. So when home building is impacted with higher interest rates, you have other sectors like furniture manufacturing and home goods and things like that. Auto manufacturing has not taken a hit per se, but just kind of come down from the heights of post-pandemic boom.
The index edged up to 47.2% for an 8-month low of 46.8%. And just in case you're not aware, numbers below 50% signal that the manufacturing sector is shrinking.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked about that, as you said, on the show yesterday with John, and his members are reporting that they're still faring okay, but clearly there's a decrease in the demand for what they produce, and so I think they're making business decisions accordingly.
Exactly.
That's what's going on.
I heard you talk about this too. I thought this was a pretty neat thing that happened yesterday. Former President Donald Trump says if he's elected, he'll establish a government efficiency commission to conduct an audit of the federal government that's aimed at cutting waste. And Elon Musk, who's never headed a government study, agreed to lead this commission. I thought it was neat. He said on X that he'd look forward to serving America if the opportunity arises. No pay, no title, and no recognition needed. And we talked to Mandy Gunasekara this morning, the former EPA chief of staff under Trump, and she said she absolutely supports the plan.
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea. I mean, many agencies, including EPA and the Department of Defense, for example, so it really runs the spectrum of federal agencies, haven't been on the receiving end of an audit by in a very, very, very long time, and from a detached third party.
But just like you were making the point earlier, if we really want to ease inflation, we've got to cut spending somewhere.
Yeah, as long as we're borrowing money, which we're doing to the tune of $3 billion a day, that pumps up the money supply, and that's just more dollars chasing fewer goods. And so it's really a combination is needed. We need to expand supply and boost economic output, and we also got to cut spending and reduce the amount of borrowing. I don't see any end in sight, no matter who gets elected, honestly. Yeah, so...
Well, we'll know November 5th, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's because nobody will touch the mandatory spending, which consumes 70% of total outlays. They just won't touch it. Government shutdown. Speaking of spending, we got the federal government working to fund it because the money's running out here pretty soon. And so, as you are aware, many members of the House, the Freedom Caucus, and even others are saying they want to include a provision in that budget that would require that only citizens, we already have a law to do that, but they want to put more teeth into that, can register to vote and actually cast a ballot. And they're insisting that that's got to be part of that legislation.
It's called the SAVE Act, and I think a lot of Republican leaders in the House, who are really pushing for the SAVE Act, are concerned about how it's going to affect them in November. But Congressman Michael Guest said there's this growing push to attach this, and here's what he had to say about it.
There's been a lot of talk of making sure that we as Congress are protecting the integrity of the election, making sure that with the flood of 12 million plus illegal immigrants that we've seen under the Biden-Harris administration, that those people are not voting.
Of course, it's unlikely such an attachment would be able to pass in the Democrat-controlled Senate. So even if the House passes it, it may not matter in the end.
Yeah, I think Schumer's already signaled he wouldn't support it. His conference wouldn't, and of course the president said he would not sign off on such legislation. I think what the Republicans are trying to do here, honestly, is put the ball in the court of the Democrat-controlled Senate. And if they sit on it, won't go along with that, government shuts down, and I think they want to point fingers at, hey, the Democrats shut the government down here.
Yeah, they're trying to get them on record, basically, for their vote on non-citizen voting.
More Mississippi schools move into the modified year-round calendar.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Okay, so you've got traditional and modified school calendars. They each have 180 days of academic instruction as required by law. A modified calendar shortens summer break and pushes up the start of school by about 2 weeks and extends the end of the school year by roughly 1 week. Advocates for this modified calendar say it better balances time in and out of school for both students and teachers. Representative Lloyd Rob Robertson was on the Gallo show this morning. He's the chair of the House Education Committee, and he says schools are really given the opportunity to see what works better for them. But here's the feedback he's been getting.
I have had some conversations with a lot of the teachers that say that the kids are more engaged in the type of the newer version. But I don't know that there has been any real mainline studies that really pulled this information out for us.
And at this point, there's no mandate from the Mississippi Department of Education over, which way to do it.
Yeah. I'm not in favor of the state dictating the school's calendar. I think that ought to be decided at a local level on a district-by-district basis. So I've heard mixed reports. Some parents at least like it, some don't. Just depends.
I would imagine that they're gathering some kind of data at this point because now they'll have it. To compare the modified school calendar with the traditional.
Yeah. So Moss Point raising taxes and fees just yesterday.
Yeah. Despite opposition from residents, and of course you're going to oppose tax increases. Who wouldn't, right? Moss Point city leaders voted to raise taxes and fees to help offset a $2 million deficit. The plan includes a $6 increase in the minimum water bill, a $4 increase for garbage pickup, and a $9 million increase in ad valorem taxes. They had a public hearing on this Thursday night to discuss the upcoming budget. Of course, October 1st is the start of the new fiscal year, so municipalities across Mississippi are working really hard on their budgets right now.
Yeah. In the meantime, we got the big tax policy summit coming up here in a couple of weeks, that being sponsored by Speaker of the House, Jason White. That ought to be something. We look forward to that. All right, Kelly, appreciate it. Great rundown. Thanks a lot. Talk to you again soon.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.
You too. Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News, with a roundup of the news from across the state, coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.